Representative Norris is going to move that House File 1603 be laid over for possible inclusion. Welcome back to your committee, Vice Chair Norris. Whenever you're ready, please go ahead with a description of the bill.
All right. Thank you, Chair Gomez, members of the committee. It's great to be before you presenting a bill today. The bill I'm bringing before you will make our tax system work more efficiently for our local government partners and increase equity regarding who gets the tax breaks that they're entitled to under law. I think it's important to highlight right off the start that this bill does not create any new tax exemption. Under current Minnesota law, local units of governments like cities, counties, townships, and school districts are exempted from paying state sales tax on construction materials. But to utilize this exemption, they must undertake a complex process of either, one, separately bidding labor and materials, designating the contractor as a purchasing agent, and assuming liability for damages caused by defective materials or delivery delays, or two, they can purchase all of the materials directly themselves, which is impractical for most projects. As a result, most local governments just kind of throw their hands up and they pay the state sales tax, or they come to the legislature seeking an individual exemption. Key stakeholder groups worked with the Department of Revenue to come up with the process in this bill that allows a local unit of government to apply for a refund of the state sales tax after completion of the project. This streamlines the process for local units of government and allows DOR to ensure that the sales tax savings are realized by the exempt entity and not the contractor. This bill offers two major benefits. First, it makes it much simpler and efficient for our local government partners to use the exemption that they're already entitled to under state law. And two, it creates more equity by eliminating the current system where entities with sufficient administrative wherewithal and political influence at the Capitol get one-off exemptions and others do not. I'd like to thank my bipartisan group of co-authors on the committee for their support of this legislation. And with that, I'll turn it over to our testifiers. And Chair Gomez, if we can, Mr. Gridley would like to testify first.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Representative Norris. Appreciate that overview. I was going to ask Ms. Hagler to go over some of the intricacies of it, but I think you did such a good job. I don't see a need to go over to her, so you're making her job easier today. Thank you for that. So to Mr. Clint Gridley, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Clint Gridley. I serve as the City Administrator for the City of Woodbury. I'm going to be your case example, speaking both to specifically our request and also this larger request. So as I mentioned, and as mentioned, just like to thank Representative Norris for this bill, along with the other members of the committee for sponsoring it. So House File 1603 is a straightforward bill that, as mentioned, would permanently allow all local government construction projects, not just the ones in Woodbury, but for all local governments across the state, to receive the benefit of a sales tax exemption through a streamlined refund process identical to the process used in House File 1623, which I'm going to be testifying in a few minutes about. So we understand that the revenue impact of this bill is high. In the first full year of the refund process, the general fund impact is $77 million. But please keep in mind, this means that local governments and other exempt entities are paying $77 million in sales tax on projects that technically but are not practically exempt because the current process to receive the exemption is cumbersome and risky, and we certainly can testify to that. As a city official who works closely with elected city councils that watches every penny of their budget, this is a very real consideration, as why we are also seeking a specific exemption for Woodbury in House File 1623. But on behalf of all local governments, securing this refund process will have direct benefits to our taxpayers through lower construction costs for public facilities, water treatment projects, and even local roads. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you, and I urge you to support House File 1603.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Next up, we're going to, Mr. Carlson, if you want to come up, and then Matt Mossman, you're on deck. And if there are questions later when we get to discussion, we'll call you back up. Welcome to the committee.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Gary Carlson. I work with the League of Minnesota Cities. We represent 837 of the currently 854 cities in Minnesota. And we do testify today in support of this bill. I'd like to thank Representative Norris for authoring this bill, and Representatives David Swedzinski and Joachim on the committee for co-sponsoring the bill. This is an issue I've been working on since the general exemption was granted to cities in 2013. And this is one cleanup piece that I would really like to get done. It is an issue that, as Mr. Gridley testified, we are technically exempt on these purchases at the city and county level, but practically speaking, it just doesn't work. And I don't want to blame the Department of Revenue on the technical aspects. We understand that their job is to enforce the tax laws, and they want to make sure that purchases that should be taxable remain taxable, while purchases that are exempt are exempt. That's why back in, I think, 2014 or 15, we first sat down with then Commissioner Cynthia Bowerly, and we hashed out a process by which we could make this work for the Department of Revenue. They could enforce the law, and our cities and counties and other jurisdictions could take advantage of the exemption that really is due on these purchases. So, Madam Chair, I would just encourage the committee, let's get this done this year. This is my last full year with the League of Cities, and I have some cleanup issues I would like to get done, and this is one of those that we've had strong bipartisan support. We know the number is eye-opening, but keep in mind, $77 million is coming out of our local property taxpayers' pockets to pay for that state sales tax infusion. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carlson, and for your service to our state. And we want to give you a really nice retirement present, I promise. All right, next up, Mr. Mossman. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Madam Chair and members, Matt Mossman from the Minnesota Intercounty Association. I'm pretty sure I probably should have just stopped with Mr. Carlson's testimony. I will just join the chorus of supporters from the county's perspective, and again, thank Representative Norris for carrying this, and co-authors as well, Swedzinski, Coulter, Davids, and Joachim, and encourage others to join in what has been a bipartisan effort over many years. And I'll just, my points are the same, so I'm just going to underscore them quickly. In 2013, when this change was made, it was the policy intent of the legislature that these purchases by local governments not be taxable, and that policy intent simply won't be effectuated and realized until we're able to move to this refund exemption for all local projects. I think that's been demonstrated time and again. It is simply, as has been said by Representative Norris, just not practical and workable on the project level to bid for these materials separately, which I think really underscores the importance of tax fairness as well in two ways. Not every nonprofit that this impacts as well, not every school district, not every town or city or county is necessarily going to be in a position to seek or achieve a special law exemption that would be able to get this refund exemption. That's one way. The other way is that a lot of these materials might not have the pizzazz of a construction project that is easily sort of something you can wrap your arms around and seek a special proposal for. They might be for the routine purchase of what you do to upkeep your parks and trails for your community. It might be what you do to get more lane miles done and road construction materials, and the better and more fair and more even tax policies for this to be in place for all local governments. So we just really, again, appreciate support and encourage that this be the year that it gets done. The price that keeps going up is simply indicative, I think, would argue, of the impractical effect of what we have in place now. So thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Tiffany Gustin is next on the list. Welcome to the committee. Please just say your name and go ahead with your testimony.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is Tiffany Gustin. I am the Associate Director of Management and Insurance Trust Services. How exciting does that sound? Of the Minnesota School Boards Association. I'm speaking today on behalf of Minnesota's school districts, who, along with the other government organizations and nonprofits affected by the bill, respectfully request your support of House File 1603. In respect of your time, I will not remind you of the technical aspects of the bill, but once again, I would like to commend Representative Norris for bringing the bill forward and providing that summary for you as well. Instead, I will use this time to provide you with a few examples of school districts, and when I say school districts, I mean the students, who will directly benefit by this bill becoming law. On Tuesday, there were 3 school districts that successfully passed bond referendums, and those referendums totaled $41.7 million in projects that will be used to help improve our schools. In a document that was created by the Department of Revenue, there was an estimate that approximately 40% of project costs are supplies and materials that would be affected by the sales tax exemption in this bill. So when you add up the impact of just these 3 projects, we're looking at $1.14 million in sales tax that will be saved through these projects. Those dollars will partially be, I suspect, used to absorb some of the costs of inflation as our project costs have gone up. In all 3 of these cases, these were bills or referendums that were brought back to the taxpayers after failed referendums, and in each of those cases, the project cost increased due to inflation. So if this bill passes and sales tax is not applicable, again, it will help these school districts to be able to once again provide the level of project support that was originally part of that scope. Whether school districts are completing these construction projects with dollars approved through these referenda, or recent successful other bond referendums, or other funding streams, including LTFM, long-term facilities maintenance, inflation has wreaked havoc on those projects, again, beyond the scope of just these 3. All of these school districts will have to find a way to supplement their planned funding sources. One obvious option is to use the general fund. If that mechanism is used, those funds come directly out of our classrooms. Passage of this sales tax exemption will provide much needed budget relief. While eliminating the sales tax may not completely make up for the increased dollars due to inflation, it will certainly ease the burden. Passage of this sales tax exemption will allow school districts to build or remodel their facilities, incorporate much needed safety measures, and create learning environments in where all of our children can thrive, whether at the pre-kindergarten level or on through high school. Passage of the sales tax exemption will keep dollars available to maintain our classroom for our 800,000+ students in the state of Minnesota, as well as to continue provide the quality education that they deserve. Thank you so much for your time, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dustin. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this bill? That's the end of my pre-filed list. I'm not seeing anyone. Is there member discussion? Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and maybe just on the tail end of having Ms. Tiffany Guston up from MSBA, one of the other reasons that this is needed is with school districts and their bond and levies. Not only will this save districts money, in turn will save their property taxpayers money because they levy for these. Part of what we do in this realm, in the tax realm, and in our education finance is equalizing those levies so that we want to make sure that where a kid's living, their zip code doesn't determine what type of education they get. So when districts go out for these bond and levies, if they're a property poor district, the state kicks in money to equalize that levy to help with the burden on their property taxpayers. So this also saves state money when we look at this little segment of it. So just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Thank you very much for providing that context. All these pieces all seem to fit together in various ways. Any other member discussion? Not seeing any. Representative Norris, did you have any closing comments?
Thanks, Chair Gomez. I'll just add, I think, Ms. Guston really highlighted, the importance of this. I was in education finance yesterday, fighting for more funding for our schools through the general formula. My goal with that is not to have the schools turn around and have to pay that back to the state in the form of sales tax when they need to build a new building. And so I think this is an idea whose time has hopefully come, and it'll promote efficiency and equity in our tax system. So encourage inclusion of it in our omnibus.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, Representative Norris moves that renews his motion that House File 1603 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it's laid over.